Okay, magandang araw po sa inyo lahat. Ako po si Christian Esquera and welcome po sa ating Facts First episode. One of two Facts First episodes ngayong araw ng July 28, 2025. Araw po ng State of the Nation Address ni President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. And of course, kahit nakatutok po yung marami dyan, nandun pa rin po yung napakalaking issue na nangyari po last week. Ito po yung desisyon ng Korte Suprema, pabor kay Vice President Sara Duterte na essentially, pinapahinto na itong impeachment trial dahil dineclare nila na void from the very beginning daw yung articles of impeachment na itinransmit ng House of Representatives dyan po sa Senado. At ito po yung matagal na po nating hinihimay simula pa po last week. Okay, ito pong episode natin ngayon, the first of our two episodes tonight. This is a recorded episode at exactly ngayong tanghali. Okay? Pero of course, enduring po yung mga topics na pag-uusapan natin ngayon patungkol po dito sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema. Ang makakasama po natin for this episode, isa po siyang public interest lawyer and perhaps nababasa niyo po sa X or Twitter and other online platforms yung kanyang opinion dito po sa naging desisyon ng Korte Suprema. I'd like to welcome for the first time dito po sa Facts First, Public Interest Lawyer, Attorney Jesus Falsis. Magandang araw, Attorney Jess, and thank you for joining us for the first time dito sa Facts First.
Good day and excited to be finally here sa Facts First.
Okay. Siguro yung mga viewers natin familiar dahil your comments on many issues have been making the rounds of social media and in particular itong iyong opinion dito sa naging desisyon ng Korte Suprema. Okay, unang-una ano ba yung mga nakikita mong rito? Parang problema dito sa naging desisyon ng Korte Suprema.
Well, we were already warned last week of judicial overreach, no? And what happened when the Supreme Court decision came out in the case of Sara Duterte versus House, I don't think it's just a case of judicial overreach. Mas malala pa nga no? So it's already tantamount to judicial legislation. Judicial legislation happens when the courts, especially the Supreme Court, interprets the law in a way that it effectively amends or rewrites the Constitution or the laws. No? So very basic, first-year law students and political science students, kahit first year Paulsa yan, tinuturo yung separation of powers. And we all know, the judiciary is there to interpret, has the power to interpret. Legislative, basic, has the power to legislate. So the judiciary should not legislate, no? It can only interpret. That's why it has to use the deliberation of the framers, the intent of the lawmakers. It has to use the text of the law. Bound sila doon, limited sila, yung power to interpret. Ngayon, political scientists, analysts, historians, professors of law, they have this term called judicial legislation. And this came before me, hindi ako yung nag-i-invent ng mga ganitong constructive criticism or critical thought about judicial overreach or judicial legislation. It happens when the interpretation tantamounts to effectively may mga nasingit, may mga nabago, may mga nalagay na wala naman doon sa text, wala naman sa intent ng framers or ng mga legislators, magiging batas because of course, we have to follow the courts. They are the final interpreter of the law, but they are not immune to criticism. And one of the criticisms that can be levied against courts, especially the Supreme Court, is when it interprets to the effect na nagkakaroon ng judicial legislation. So yun yung nangyari nung in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
Okay, actually, marami rin nagbabanggit niya, no? Yung judicial overreach at saka, of course, yung legislation. Nagdagdag dun sa wala naman o hindi sinasabi ng ating konstitusyon. So perhaps ang tinutukoy mo rito ay yung additional layers of requirements when it comes to using one particular mode of impeaching a public official, no? Can you elaborate on that? Kasi wala naman yun sa konstitusyon natin
So, the case of Sara Duterte versus House raises two issues basically, no? Kahit gawin natin very basic. First is yung one-year bar rule, yun yung isang issue. Second is yung sa due process. Doon muna tayo sa due process kasi dito related yung mas clear na may judicial legislation. We all know from history the Manny Villar impeachment route. Yeah. Ano yung Manny Villar impeachment route? Ako kasi lumaki ako sa panahon na yun, naabutan ko talaga. It was so electrifying to watch on television na Speaker Manny Villar had the balls or had the courage to transmit the impeachment complaint directly to the Senate as long as it met, because it already met the constitutional requirement of the 1/3 vote. So, basahin natin para clear yung judicial legislation na issue, no?
Attorney Jess, before you continue, idagdag ko lang yung kay Manny Villar doon sa mga hindi nakakaalala. Sabi mo electrifying yun. Dinaan niya yun sa dasal. Pagkatapos ng dasal, dire-diretso yung transmittal because the odds were so great within the House of Representatives. Diba, nandun yung pressure ni Erap Estrada na presidente na napakalakas sa mga panahon na yon. So marami nagulat after prayer, dire-diretso na pa rin transmittal. Go ahead.
Yes, correctly. That was electrifying because madaming allies pa noon si Erap sa House, and it was not expected that the speaker in the person of Manny Villar would transmit directly, which actually he did correctly according to the text and spirit of the Constitution. So Article 11, basahin natin, no? Section 3, Article 11, number 4, in case the verified complaint is filed by at least 1/3 of all the members of the House, at least so it can be more, which happened in the case of Sara Duterte, more than a majority signed the 4th impeachment complaint, the same shall constitute the articles of impeachment, and trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. So, itong sentence lang na ito, walang procedure nandyan. Automatic na ito na yung procedure ni layout ng Constitution in the event that the impeachment complaint is signed by at least 1/3, automatically, by operation of law or by operation of the Constitution, the same shall constitute as articles of impeachment. Bakit ko sinasabing by operation of law? Nasa Supreme Court decisions yan eh. Ibig sabihin, there can be nothing in between. Automatic yan. By default, by operation of the Constitution, wala nang pwedeng sumingit. Basta napirmahan ng 1/3, it becomes the articles of impeachment. And, ang sabi ng Constitution, not the Supreme Court, no? Sabi ng Constitution, and automatically, after ma-constitute yung articles of impeachment, trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. So, eto dito sa section na ito, nagkaroon ng judicial legislation because when the Supreme Court said that Sara Duterte was denied due process, dapat daw sa House pa lang, nagkaroon ng opportunity to be heard ang ating Vice President. So, let me clarify, no? Allow me to present some counterpoints to that. We all know due process is very important. That's why we are very much critical of the Dutertes because sila number 1 violator ng due process. Sa Davao pa lang, of course, nationally, nung Oplan Tokhang. But everyone is deserving of due process, even accused or impeachment respondents like the Vice President, and we will give them that. Does the Constitution deny them due process at the House level? No. So may 2 modes kasi ng initiating impeachment eh. The first, doon mas may due process in the traditional sense that the Supreme Court is discussing. Itong traditional sense, let's call it, Christian, na adversarial due process. Ang adversarial, may 2 sides, no? So you have to hear the accuser, the complainant, and the accused or the respondent. So may 2 sides yan. May judge or merong neutral, impartial person dapat na makikinig sa parehong sides and magdi-decide. That's adversarial. Is that the only type of due process in the world and even in the Philippines? No. We have another type called inquisitorial or mas gusto ngayon na term is non-adversarial. Ang non-adversarial, hindi mo kailangan magkaroon ng 2 sides because an inquisitor or yung nag-i-inquire can on his own gather the evidence. Now, will that be a deprivation of due process? Not necessarily when we talk about these articles of impeachment and the impeachment process. Why is that? Napakaganda nga ng design ng Constitution na medyo na mangle na because of the decision. Sa lower house, let's assume it's the lower house, the upper house, which is the Senate, ang lower house ang binibigyan ng inquisitorial due process on the second mode of initiating, which is yung automatic, the Manny Villar route. Basta may 1/3 signature, direct transmittal to the Senate. Bakit walang adversarial doon? Because yung adversarial due process nasa Senate. The opportunity to be heard is in the trial sa Senate. That is where Sara Duterte or any respondent can rebut and present their own evidence. Ang mangyayari sa House is more a direct representation of the voice of the people. We should remember the House kasi is more local. Mas direct ang representation nila sa tao kaysa sa senators. Kaya nga, ganun yung design na if 1/3 of your local elected voice of the people, representatives of the people, nag-decide na mag-sign ng impeachment complaint, they already saw merit in the case to charge. Mag-accuse pa lang naman eh. So to rebut those charges, that's in the Senate. So in summary, no, the judicial legislation here happens if you read the text of Article 11, Section 3, Number 4, wala dyan yung mga gustong ilagay ng Supreme Court because precisely the adversarial due process that the Leone Ponente or decision wanted to give to Sara Duterte happens in the Senate, not in the House.
Mm-hmm. Kasi parang impression dito yung the Supreme Court in its decision bent over backwards to actually accommodate Sara Duterte, the respondent, dito sa issue ng due process. At issue ng yun ang dating eh. Kasi wala sa konstitusyon eh, pero dinagdagan na requirements. The next question is, tama ba na applicable yung requirements na yan, which are very questionable to begin with, dito sa kaso ni Sara Duterte, gumugulong na impeachment process?
Yes. The Senate has already acquired jurisdiction. So hindi yun actually tinakil ng Supreme Court in its decision. No? Wala na siyang sinabi na, nung June nag-convene na, nag-oath-taking na yung Senate as an impeachment court. Walang delicate balance or discussion yung ponente about the separation of powers and courtesy for the other co-equal branches of government. I have to clarify, no? Kasi syempre madaming criticism na, bakit mo kinikriticize ng Supreme Court? Sila na yung Supreme, mas marunong yan, justices na yan. And they have the power to interpret with finality. Let's respect the rule of law. Of course, as a lawyer, I respect the rule of law, but we should remember wala tayong Supreme Court supremacy. We do not have a Supreme Court supremacy. Our republic follows constitutional supremacy because many people are forgetting even the Supreme Court is bound and below every government official from the barangay to the president to the Supreme Court to the Senate is below the Constitution. That is the doctrine we're following, doctrine of constitutional supremacy. So anything we're discussing, even if we're just criticizing the Supreme Court, there's nothing wrong with it because what we are following and trying to highlight is the supremacy of the Constitution. Baka naman nagkamali ang Supreme Court because tao lang naman din sila, tao lang ako, di naman perfect ang aking opinion, but we are in a democracy. And I am granted the right to criticize the Supreme Court for future purposes na sana ma-avoid yung mga ganitong judicial overreach or judicial legislation.
Okay. Nabanggit mo yung, bago tayo mag-move on doon sa ibang issues dito, no? Nabanggit mo yung kritisismo. Kasi ito ngayon nakikita ko lalo yung mga supporters ng Vice Presidente. Yun nga, yung argument nila. O magtigil kayo kasi nagsalita na kayo sa Supreme Court. Although madali naman basahin yung kanilang intention. Pero nandun din yung pananakot, 'di ba? Sinasabi nila, Supreme Court, gawin niya na ng action to mga katulad nila Jess Falsis, 'di ba, mga abogado na nakikriticize dito. Bilang isang abogado, hanggang saan ba yung hangganan ng pwede mong pag-criticize sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema? Kasi dito parang pati yung basic right mo to express your opinion na guaranteed sa ating Constitution, sa Bill of Rights, tinatakot.
Well, lawyers will always have to navigate that carefully, no? So even ako, hindi naman na wala akong takot, no? Ang katapangan naman, Christian, I'm sure like what you do, no? There are many threats, trolling, sa inbox mo siguro may mga, kasi ako, syempre, grabe ang inbox ko when it comes to death threats, insults, mga ad hominems, everything you can imagine, nakuha ko na, no? And lawyers have to navigate that carefully outside of the trolling pa because the Supreme Court itself, no, unfortunately, and I'm sure they're very well aware of this because Justice Leonen himself was the dean of UP Law. When he was the dean of UP Law, alam mo ba, I'm sure you know naman, no, but for the viewers, he was a critic of the Supreme Court in 2010, 2011. Alam ko yan, Christian, kasi law student ako noon under the term of Dean Justice Leonen. Nagsulat sila ng manifesto or ng parang statement, UP Law statement, criticizing the Supreme Court for plagiarism. In the case of Binoya versus Executive Secretary against Justice Del Castillo, Shinokos order sila. They were made to explain why their statements were not contemptuous. And yun yung background ngayon sa mga critics like me. Siyempre, alam din naman ng mga tao, ako napagalitan ako quote-unquote nung same-sex marriage case, which I have many explanations, but that's not the time to explain now, no? Meron akong sariling perspective on that. But of course, someone na pinagalitan noon, syempre ingat din ako mag-criticize ng court, especially Justice Leonen is still there. But as a Filipino, hindi ko talaga mapigilan. Hindi ko naman mapigilan na hindi pwedeng mag-comment on the constitutional supremacy. I'm just asserting that the Constitution is higher and that the Constitution is not being followed even by the Supreme Court. May I remind my critics, so yung mga gusto mag-silence sa mga tulad ko, no? I'm a Filipino first. Facts first, di ba? I'm a Filipino first before I'm a lawyer. But of course, as a lawyer, I'm an officer of the court. I will always promote administration of justice. I will always promote respect for the rule of law and respect for the courts. And part of that respect for the courts is promoting respect for the Constitution. So as a Filipino first, ang loyalty ko is to the Constitution first, not and to the Filipino people, and not to the Supreme Court or the court per se. So sana maintindihan nila, but as you have said, there are moves to file petitions for contempt against people like me. Sana hindi ako yung mauna kasi sabi ni Topacio, mukhang ako yata yung pinakaunang sasampahan nila. Sana lang hindi ako yung mauna. Kasi ang dami namang iba dyang lawyers, even former justices, who have criticized the Supreme Court like me. So I hope I'm not the first.
Tsaka ang problema rito, parang magkakaroon ng chilling effect yan. Ibig sabihin, bawal na palang magsabi ng opinion doon sa desisyon ng Supreme Court, na of course, irerespeto naman yan dahil sila yung final interpreter ng ating konstitusyon. Pero kung may nakikita ka talagang blatant na pagkakamali dun sa basihan, na sa tingin mo, yun nga, di ba? Paano ba naman yun? Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin yun publicly? Parang may pagka-dictatorial naman kung gano'n ang mangyayaring sitwasyon, di ba?
Very fascist. Kasi nga, ito si Attorney Topacio, attorney to and he's promoting chilling effect like that. May Nazi painting kasi siya, di ba? May painting siya ni Hitler sa likod ng office niya. So may pagkapasista yung ganong galaw dahil in a healthy democracy, even lawyers and normal people, no? Let's remember, the Constitution is a political document. It's not a legal document. Yun yung masama din sa decision ng Supreme Court in the case of Sara Duterte versus House. Hindi ko na-mention kanina, one of the rulings of the Leonen Ponente is to say that impeachment is more a legal than a political proceeding, which I think, in my humble opinion, with all due respect, is wrong because the Constitution, first and foremost, is a political document, specifically the Article 11 on public accountability of public officers. That is where the people have a mechanism to hold public officers accountable. So it's a really political article, yung Article 11. More than a legal proceeding, more than a legal document, it's a political proceeding kasi nga House and Senate ang binigyan ng sole power, not the judiciary. So that's where it's wrong. And also maybe Attorney Topacio, when he says critics like me and non-lawyers daw, no, should not comment because wala naman daw silang alam sa batas, like Attorney Sal Panelo din, hindi daw alam ng mga lawyers. Pag hindi ka lawyer, wala ka namang kasi hindi mo naman alam ganun-ganon. But any person can read, who can read and write, can read the Constitution. So they should be able to comment on it. Kasi citizen sila, botante sila. They're part of the democracy that the Constitution empowers.
Okay, kung patulan yung credentialism na argument kasi masisira yung diskurso at actually ginagawa lang excuse para extinguish yung contrary opinion na baka kinatatakutan ng iba. Okay? Parang ilalagay sa lugar, diba? Hindi ka naman abogado eh. Ako mismo nagamit na sa akin yan ni Attorney Sal Panelo when I was still with ANC. Pero parang ang pinag-usapan namin noon Rome Statute eh. Pero I had the impression na mas nabasa ko sa kanya yung Rome Statute at that time eh. Okay. Anyway, that's a side issue. Okay, pag-usapan natin yung pangalawa. This is also very, very important, no? Yung application ng 1-year bar rule ng Supreme Court ponente ni Justice Leonen, tama ba yung pinagbasihan factually?
So I already read that first day pa lang, no? When it was uploaded sa website, I read the decision. But after the sober weekend passed, no, madami pang statements lumabas, I guide everyone to read the statement of one sambayanan, no? Which is of course Justice Carpio is part of. So kaya siguro maganda yung statement. It's quite clear yung facts and yung timeline doon ng first and third impeachment complaints or the first three versus the fourth impeachment complaint. So when we talk of the one-year bar rule, ang basahin naman natin Article 11, Section 3, Number 5. No impeachment proceedings, hindi complaint ang nakalagay dito, no impeachment proceedings shall be initiated against the same official more than once within a period of 1 year. So magkakaroon ng application of the one-year bar rule if meron ng na-initiate na impeachment proceedings. Now, historically, law students like me before and lawyers na tinuruan noong 2010, 2000s to 2010 or 2020 before this decision, ang talagang sinaksak sa utak namin, no, mga lawyers and law students, Francisco versus House, mga 2000 era na case, time ni GMA, time ni CJ Davide, there are two ways to initiate an impeachment proceeding. Yung second, na pag-usapan na nga natin, the Manny-Villar route. The first route naman is what we call the referral route. So, pagka-file ng citizen, endorsed by a congressman, it must be referred to the Committee of Justice or the proper committee, which in most cases is the Committee on Justice. So, dalawang ways. Tapos yung first, two elements, filing and referral. Pag hindi nagkaroon ng filing and referral, hindi mo mai-initiate under the first route. Sa second route naman, basta na-sign na yan ng 1/3, again, sabi ko kanina, automatic. So, dapat na-initiate na yan kasi automatic by operation of the Constitution. Sa first route, doon nangyari yung first three impeachment complaints filed by Akbayan Party List and civil society groups na nag-file na aligned with Akbayan Party List, no? Endorsed yan by Akbayan December 2. Ngayon, lahat yan, first three, hindi ko na sigurado yung date of the filing of the second and third. But what is sure is, after December 2, the first three complaints were were included in the order of business on February 5. So the Constitution requires that when impeachment complaints have been filed na first route, kailangan i-include siya sa order of business within 10 session days. 10 session days is not calendar days. Kasi ang normal na tao ang iisipin, kung layo ng December 2 sa February 5, lampas-lampas na yan sa 10 session days. Hindi. Ang session day kasi may sariling calendar ang Congress, and a session day can last for 3 to 5 days. Ganun yon. That's why it's very technical, session day ang tawag. But regardless...
Basta hindi nag-adjourn.
Correct. Ang punto dyan, ang February 3 to 5, yun yung designated na 10th session day after December 2. Because after December 2, there was a 27th session, so magbibilang ka niyan. Medyo kailangan ko lang maging technical, may point din ako dito later eh. 27th session, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So 36 session day ng Congress ang deadline for inclusion in the order of business. And the House met this deadline on February 5. Unfortunately, para dito sa mga arguments in favor of Sara Duterte, no, medyo nag-argue na ako against the Supreme Court decision. Unfortunately, the fourth impeachment complaint was also filed and included in the order of business on February 5. Now, I'll be fair to the Supreme Court decision, i-explain ko yung Supreme Court side, no? Ang Leonen Ponente, ang analysis niya on the first three impeachment complaints is that while, okay, nag-comply siya sa inclusion within 10 session days, hindi niya refer to the Committee on Justice within 3 session days because wala na daw pwedeng maging session. Mag-a-adjourn sinide, patay na talaga yung Congress after February 5. Pag nag-adjourn at hindi na refer sa Committee of Justice, magkakaroon ng effective dismissal. Yan yung bagong doctrine na new law students will have to read and will have to know, no? May doctrine of effective dismissal. Pag effectively dismissed daw ang impeachment complaint, effectively initiated na din yan. Pag initiated yan effectively, matitrigger ang 1-year bar rule. Therefore, if na-initiate yung first T, because of effective dismissal, barred ang
Wait.
fourth impeachment complaint.
Ito yung basic question. Sorry, ito yung basic question. Yan ang Supreme Court explanation. Pero ang tanong, na-initiate din yung yung fourth impeachment complaint using the other route that same day bago nag-adjourn ng House.
Yes. So ito yon. Ito may dalawa tayong kontrapunto. Gamitin muna natin yung sa one sambayanan, no? Sa statement nila, and alam ko naman din tong facts na to pero mas klaro yung oras. Kasi we have to look at the chronology. Ang normal logic is that the first three should have come before. The first three should have been initiated before the fourth was quote-unquote initiated as well. Para yung fourth yung bawal. Kaso if you look at the chronology and the facts, yung reality, no, physical, walang fake news, walang alternative reality, the first three impeachment complaints, kailan sila ma-effectively dismiss? By the logic of the Supreme Court. Sabi ng Supreme Court, pag nag-adjourn ang House, kailan nag-adjourn ang House? On February 5. What time? 7:15 p.m. These are according to the facts. Kailan na sign, na file, na sign, na include, and na transmit? Doon na tayo sa transmittal to the Senate kasi natapos na lahat and yet mas maaga pa than 7:15. Na-transmit yung fourth impeachment complaint mga 4:57 p.m. or around 5 p.m. May ilaw pa noon, hindi pa gabi. 7:15, nung nag-adjourn, gabi na. So, kung naunang matransmit and na-initiate yung fourth impeachment complaint, chronologically, time-wise, dapat siya actually, ito yung kontrapunto na, it was the fourth impeachment complaint that should have barred the first three. It's not the first three that should bar the fourth. The fourth should have barred the first three, and the House has the prerogative. Ang tanong, can the House choose? Does the House have discretion? Baka ang tiningnan ng Supreme Court dito, first na file yung first three Hindi. Pare-pareho silang na-include sa order of business and the House has a constitutional prerogative. Where do we base this? Saan natin hinuhugot yung constitutional prerogative ng House? Sabi ng Constitution, the House can promulgate its own rules. To effectuate the impeachment proceedings laid out by Article 11. So, part ng freedom and discretion and prerogative ng House to act on the fourth impeachment complaint first, especially when the logic is, napirmahan na nga ng 1/3. Balik tayo ng onti doon sa number 4, automatic pag na-sign niya ng 1/3, automatic articles of impeachment na yan. So, there is no other duty, walang discretion na ang House but to transmit to the Senate. So, talina din yung kamay nila. So, kung na-initiate na yung fourth should have barred the first three. Unfortunately, and ito lang naman yung aking absurdity na nakikita dyan, the Supreme Court did not discuss those nitty-gritty facts and or, even if it did, magta-time travel si Supreme Court. Ginamit niya yung 7 p.m. na effective dismissal para i-bar yung fourth impeachment complaint versus normally doing it chronologically. Isingit na din natin dito, Christian, bakit hindi na-discuss ng Supreme Court itong specific time or timestamps, no, yung chronology? Kasi, ironically, they afforded Sara Duterte due process but they violated and did not give the House due process. Nasabi na yan ni Justice Ascuna, ni Justice Carpio, ni Justice Puno, ni former Chief Justice Puno. Ang House, in order ng Supreme Court to comply with a question or with questions. Binasa nyo ba? Ibigay nyo sa amin yung calendar, yung session days, gano'n. Nag-comply naman ang House. Pero hindi inutusan ng Supreme Court ang House as a respondent to formally comment on the petition of Sara Duterte. So wala pang petition, wala pang pleading or writing ang House to formally rebut the legal arguments on one-year bar, on due process, on jurisdiction, etc., etc. So, doon pa lang, may deprivation of due process. Second, normally sa mga kasong ganito na sobrang bigat, mga transcendental importance, nag-oral arguments ka. Kasi nga, ang daming nitty-gritty na mas maganda matanong mo on the spot para talagang mahimay mo yung issues sa mga resource persons mo or dun sa mga lawyers representing the respondent or the petitioner. Walang oral arguments sa kaso na ito. So baka kaya nakulangan ng facts yung Supreme Court at madami silang inassume. In my humble opinion, no, madaming parang inassume or logical jump yung Supreme Court kaya hindi nila nakita itong mga facts na ito.
Yun nga, dagdagan ko rin yung binabanggit mo kanina dun sa yung fourth impeachment complaint effectively barred the first three. Hindi ba nandun yung discretion precisely to allow the House, the chamber, to decide on bogus cases right away? Ibig sabihin, kung wala namang kwenta yung maunang final, bakit namin papansinin yan? Meron dumating na siguro pang-4, pang-5, pang-6, ito yung seseryosohin. Or if they so decide, 1/3 ng House. Hindi ba yun ang lohika din doon?
And that was also the wisdom of the Supreme Court, but not this Supreme Court. The Supreme Court in 2000, 2010, in the cases of Francisco and Merceditas Gutierrez, nakita nga nila because of the GMA experience, hindi ko na matandaan yung pangalan ng lawyer, na every year, nagpa-file siya ng impeachment complaint to trigger the 1-year bar against GMA. Nakita yan ng Supreme Court. So, yes, pwede nga magkaroon ng bogus complaint just for the purposes of giving protection every year to an impeachable official. So sabi ng Supreme Court, House muna tayo, ito wisdom ng Supreme Court, no? The referral includes filtering the bogus from the non-bogus. Tapos doon naman sa Merceditas Gutierrez na decision, there may be multiple impeachment complaints filed at hindi yun yung nagtitrigger ng 1-year bar because it's impeachment proceedings that bar or that initiate, no? Multiple impeachment complaints can be like multiple matchsticks. Lighting the same candle, which is, yun yung allowed, one candle, one proceeding every year. So, pwedeng piliin ng House ano yung matchstick na maglalight sa candle kasi baka mas maganda yung ilaw pag ito yung matchstick, mas effective. Kung ano yung mas malakas, pwede din sila mag-consolidate. Ano yung consolidate? Multiple impeachment complaint, i-consolidate natin, let's say yung first 3, first 4, kinonsolidate, naging isa, pwede din gawin ng House yun para yun na yung magiging articles of impeachment. That is the prerogative of the House. And hindi lang wisdom or logic na normal or layman, the Supreme Court validated it before. Unfortunately, yun nga, earth-shattering yung decision ng July 25 because it abandons effectively yung mga ganong rulings.
Okay. Finally, kung nagkamali dito yung Supreme Court, what can the public do?
Well, this interview and what journalists like you are doing or what commentators like me are doing is part of that. First of all, is to point out the weakness of the decision. We should remember, ang strength ng court decisions lies in the soundness and persuasiveness and reasonability of the decision or the ruling. So if the public, part of me, ako ay part ng public, sina Justice Carpio, Justice Puno, part of public, retired na sila, we are influencing and pointing out the weakness of the decision and therefore nudging the Supreme Court na maybe you can revisit your decision when the House files an MR. And the House naman, as the formal respondent, no, yun ang kanilang quickest remedy is to file an MR. And they said naman that they will file an MR. So, let's see what will happen with the MR. Hopefully, magka-oral arguments. Hopefully, ma-rectify ng Supreme Court in whatever way. Because madami namang way out here without embarrassing the Supreme Court. Meron tayong tinatawag na doctrine of operative fact, sabi ni Justice Ascuna, na kahit binago mo yung luma, pero i-recognize mo na since the House relied on the old doctrines, that it will still be valid and moving forward na lang na dapat bago or yung bagong doctrine ang susundin ng House. So, that is the best political compromise I can think of. Otherwise, as many others have said, it might court a constitutional crisis. But let me just preface that by saying na I don't really think it's the Senate that would be forcing a constitutional crisis. The constitutional crisis was already created when the Supreme Court entered the realm of judicial overreach or judicial legislation, in my humble opinion and with all due respect.
Okay, sige. Attorney Jess, thank you very much for joining us today, for joining us tonight. And let's see what will happen. Ano yung magiging aksyon ng Korte Suprema dito sa motion of reconsideration that is expected to be filed by the House. Again, magandang araw sa iyo, magandang gabi.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everyone. And good luck to the Philippines.
Okay. God bless the Philippines. Magandang gabi. Yan po si Attorney Jess Falsis nakausap natin dito sa issue ng desisyon ng Korte Suprema. Okay. Dali lang
I see you, Dad. See, look at my eyes. Eyes shiny.
Dumating. Hi ka muna. Hi. Hello. Hello. Okay.
I get never start everyone.
Okay. Sige. So meron po tayong live episode mamaya, no? Pero bago tayo magtapos, babatiin muna natin. Again, congratulations sa mga bumubuo ng food delivery documentary. Nagkaroon po sila ng very first public screening kagabi po, dyan po sa Power Plant Mall. And we had the opportunity to host that event. Yung sampid lang naman tayo doon. Tayo yung naging parang host ng talkback session. Again, saludo doon po sa mga mangingisda at saka sa men and women ng Philippine Coast Guard at saka Philippine Navy. And binabati rin po natin si Mr. Mike Idioma at ang kanyang family, si Ma'am Timmy Idioma at ang kanilang anak na si Elian Idioma. Si Mike tsaka yung kanyang anak, sila pala yung in charge doon sa sounds. Ang ganda-ganda ng tunog ng documentary na yun. Ito walang bola, no? Ang ganda-ganda ng documentary. It has to be watched. It's something that should be seen by every Filipino. And no wonder takot yung mga iba't ibang puwersa na maka-China na mapanood dyan ng mga Pilipino at ng ibang bansa. Okay, binabati rin po natin si Brother Melo Martinez. Nakausap natin kagabi. At of course, si Ma'am Bobet Gutierrez, siya po yung mommy ni Chuck Gutierrez. Si Chuck, siya yung producer and editor nitong food delivery, of course, directed by Baby Ruth Villarama. Ang galing-galing talaga. Binabati rin po natin si Mitzi De Lima. Nakita natin siya kagabi dyan sa Rockwell, sa power plant. And si Hailey Winter, nag-message po sa atin. Binabati po natin si Miss Evelyn Olos ng Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Happy birthday ngayon, July 28. Wow, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much. And of course, happy birthday kay Bishop Paul Haushan. Yan, kaibigan po natin yan. Si Bishop Paul, siya po yung nagkasal sa amin ng aking asawa. So magandang gabi po and happy birthday, Bishop Paul. More birthdays to come. Okay? Sige, magbabay ka na. Okay, say bye-bye. Look at the camera. Bye-bye. Okay, sige po. Kita-kita tayo sa next episode ng ating Facts First podcast. Live episode po yung susunod. Magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat.